App logins. Enjoy our greatest content, opportunities for live VIP experiences, and prioritized customer care. Plus, get access to over 5,000 audio and video concert recordings through nugs.net. Call 844-711-8800 and become a VIP. Offer details apply. Not available in Canada.
You get out of the car. Anywhere you take your phone, you can take Howard Stern, NFL Radio, and commercial-free music channels from nearly every genre. Channels vary by subscription plan. You never have to miss your favorite SiriusXM programs or commercial-free music. Find the SiriusXM app in the App Store or call 844-711-8800 or visit SiriusXM.com/app to find out more.
Wild Bud! Immediate impact of SiriusXM Octane.
Immerse yourself in a community of hard rock extremists.
World premieres,
Live performances.
and artist takeovers.
A giant thank you to the entire Octane community for keeping rock alive.
Turn up new hard rock.
Turn up Octane.
Channel 37 and on the SiriusXM app.
Some vibes that I love, some songs that I listen to on the regular.
Boundary-pushing hip-hop and R&B from around the globe. Music and Culture by Drake.
I always say there's so much deeper to music.
On his exclusive SiriusXM channel.
The one and only Sound 42.
To hear Sound 42, activate your radio by calling 844-711-8800 or visit SiriusXM.com/go.
There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, let's see. There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, let's see.
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 018146868.
Grando Deportes, Bonjour, Vidi Vidi Vici. Let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me, and people who love the universe, and that would include you. What a beautiful day. On a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Want to be my neighbor. Shut up! It's 3 o'clock in the morning. On a beautiful April the 17th in 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers. Home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade. The standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them sit ya where the good Lord split you. If that makes sense to you while you're driving all those Cadillacs, really do appreciate that. What a great show we have for you today. Not only do I talk about reparations, I talk about the Sacramento Kings last night. They knocked off the Golden State Warriors, Northern California's I-80 rival, all fair and level war. It was last year when Steph Curry dropped 50 in Game 7 at Golden One Center, and then they held them down to 22 points last night. That's a big swing, if that makes sense to you. Down in Louisiana, Zion Williamson, LeBron James, he took a charge against Zion Williamson, and he's still sliding. Oh, friend, that brother's like 200, they say 280, he's probably about 320 pounds, Zion Williamson. But he knocked down LeBron James, and I think he's still on skates, if that makes sense to you. But he took the charge, and then he pulled a hitch in his giddy up. So Zion Williamson is going to be out of the Sacramento Kings game coming up on Friday. But he did take the charge. Also, Ingram's having a hitch in his giddy-up. It might be a game that the Kings can go down there and win in New Orleans. I had the Golden State Warriors winning last night, but I was wrong because those good old boys and that light the beam noise, they made a lot of noise when they said, light the beam, light the beam, light the beam. And they were lighting the beam last night at the beautiful Golden One Center. All fair and level work. What I do want to say with Big C Sports Podcast is I want to say I'm the number one sports show in the universe. And I also champion reparations. And I champion reparations more than anybody. So I'm going to tell you, it's not just me saying it. It would be different if it was just me talking. But I'm not just talking. I'm talking about people who are actually on the bandwagon when it comes to reparations. And it's not just me. There are attorneys that are actually behind the push for reparations. So when you hear, oh, there he goes again, talking about this reparations, I want to make sure that I get the lawyers involved because they do a lot of that too. It's not just me. I want to make sure that it's just as important to talk about reparations now, reparations forever, that is to talk about light the beam, because light the beam won't do anything for descendants of child slavery, but the reparations will. And I got some lawyers that I'm going to let you hear their own words that talk about it so people don't think, oh, he must be crazy. Big C, out of Vulcan mind. No, I'm not. The great Spock from Star Trek, he was never out of his Vulcan mind because Vulcans think and they don't think with their emotions. But I use my emotions when I think, if that makes sense to you. But I love doing that with Big C Sports Podcast. I'm working on this platform. I got a new sound system. And sometimes I don't know how to tell the robot to do what I say. You get it, robot? They say a dog is a man's best friend. Well, I think a woman is a man's best friend. And a dog may come in second place if that makes sense to you. But it's all fair and level war. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 29 podcast platforms all over the universe. And streaming on 4 TV platforms, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. And I love so much about what's going on with NBA basketball. Got some play-in tournaments. People say, oh man, it's not a real playoff game. But it is a real playoff game. And I believe in playoff games. Playoffs? I'm just trying to win a game. That was a great football coach that talked about that back in the day. But I do love bringing you the playoffs, and I love doing it Big C style. There are a lot of good things happening in the world of sports, and we got so much that we can be grateful for. But if you don't enjoy it, it's like having a plate of collard greens right in front of you. But if you refuse to eat the plate of collard greens, it kind of goes to waste. And that's what I feel about reparations. So I'm going to do some things that I do with Big C Sports Podcast. Unlike a lot of other programs, may like this strike, I'm going to do my best to elucidate the subject. I always, number one, produce the show. I direct the topics. I broadcast all the shows. I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. We could all have more laughter in our lives. I know I can use more laughter, especially my neighbor last night. He's a big Golden State Warriors fan. I like both teams. I like the Kings and the Warriors. I just want to see Northern California represented. That makes sense to you. And then the commercials are done, the stats provided, the storytelling, and then even last night, De'Aaron Fox 4-3. Sacramento Kings, they had lost. They were on the back nine, sliding into the play-in tournament, and Golden State had been on a winning streak. But last night, it's like Golden State was out of gas. And in fact, I believe Klay Thompson is the first time in his career that he did not score 1 point in a playoff game. But he still shoots a higher free throw percentage than Steph Curry. Last night, they were off. You got to give it to the Sacramento Kings because that energy in that Feel the Roar, it makes a big difference in that the way that team plays. And I know there are people wondering how can the Kings beat the Warriors? Well, they made more baskets. That's a clue. At the same time, when you watch what Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson been doing over the last decade, you wonder if it was the last time you'll see them together on the floor. I know Steph Curry will be back. And will they bring back Klay Thompson? He had a bad game, and he just hasn't been the same since he had the knee injury a couple of years ago. But he's still a catch-and-shoot guy. He just didn't play well last night. But you got to look at the Kings. Domas Sabonis played well. And then De'Aaron Fox, he was doing his thing. Really liked the way the Kings got at it. Mike Brown's telling the players, you're going to learn a lot by losing. People say, what? What are you talking about, Mr. Brown? Well, they learned a lot by losing. and that's how they keep their composure, and I think they kept their composure last night. You know, Vegas, they have this thing where they had the Lakers favorite in Louisiana last night, New Orleans, by 1.5. You think, how are they going to lose by 1.5? And the Lakers had just blown them out in Los Angeles. Well, it came down to the back nine before Zion Williamson got injured. They were putting the pressure on the Lakers, and then Ingram also had a hit in his giddy up, but they ended up winning by 4, the LA Lakers. That game was an amazing basketball game. It had lots of ebbs and flows in that game, but when LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on the court at the same time, they're pretty tough out, and that's why, point spread aside, the Sacramento Kings won last night by over 20 points, and Vegas had Golden State of 2.5-point favorite. So sometimes Vegas gets it wrong. I got it wrong. I had the Warriors winning last night. I thought they would have covered the 2.5-point spread, but the Sacramento Kings, they proved me wrong. That they lit the beam, and they lit the beam last night. And I think that beam is still lit. If that makes sense to you. But at the same time, I never miss the show. It goes out to 29 podcast platforms out of New York City. And then when I think about it, streaming on 4 TV platforms, really do appreciate that. What I want to say with Big C Sports Podcast, what I love doing, that's near and dear to my heart, I love paying homage to the veterans of Crisis Hotline, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste, and I really do believe that a mind is a terrible thing to waste. We don't want to have anybody lose their mind. But if you know anybody losing their mind, they really are experienced helping you find your mind. Find my mind? How can I find my mind, Big C? You call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you got to realize there's so many people that are going through some challenges, not only because they have the post-traumatic stress disorder, but there are times when the IRS plays commercials every day. It makes you say, the IRS, you would think they really care about us. What if we put the IRS in charge of reparations? We would guarantee it would happen. Reparations now, reparations forever. They put the IRS in charge of reparations, then we would definitely get our reparations. And that's my story that I'm thinking with it. I'm not even being silly about that. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk some things today about sports and reparations, but I want to do my commercial. As I say, I do my commercials live. I don't try to do a commercial the way nobody knows what it is, and they can't figure out what it is. I'm gonna try to do it the best I can, and some people like it, and some people they don't like the commercial, but I like the commercial. I think it's a wonderful commercial, so I'm gonna do the best I can with Big C's commercial. It's called, again, I don't go into a studio hiding from anybody. I bring it to you live. And that means if I make a mistake, you hear my mistake. If I don't make a mistake, then you don't hear my mistake, if that makes sense to you. But I have a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth with the RDC team, Resource Development Consulting, the Missing Link, along with the Big C team in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau and attorney George Jones. The Missing Link Long-Term Care Solutions by the book, helping seniors get their benefits, Medicare, and you taking care of tomorrow, and health care coverage in California is called Medi-Cal. Your family and spouse can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. Find out your options. I promise to you, unlike the Aflac commercial, that's for Gap Insurance. Okay? If you have a gap, it's okay to deal with the RDC team. We even help you if you have a gap. A big gap or a small gap, you can still get help with the RDC team, no matter how big your gap is. But we specialize to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without a spend down. All paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by our staff of entitlement specialists. Ongoing consultants to provide updates as necessary, benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescriptions, medical equipment costs, and more. Do you know anyone that's dealing with skilled nursing facilities? Do you know anyone dealing with prescriptions? Do you know anyone dealing with medical equipment costs and more? Protection of your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family. Avoiding the nightmare of debt brought by the government's estate recovery program can be from 10 to 40%. Any one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. You give that some praise. I say give it praise, praise, praise. Not only that, protection. What kind of protection, Big C? I'm glad you asked, because we all need protection. Insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal, planning for long-term care, avoid probate, life insurance, veterans benefits, aid and attendance, pre-planning, and avoid the look-back period. What about fixed assets? Your bank account, checking account, savings account, money market accounts, and then certificates of deposit, life insurance with cash values, fixed index annuities. What about variable assets? I'm glad you asked. Real estate, qualified money, IRA, 401k, other investments. Avoid capital gains. The step-up basis, you buy a house at $100,000. And then next year, it appreciates to $1 million. That's a $900,000 capital gain. With RDC, learn how to not deal with the capital gains when you put the property in a trust. Over 3 decades of experience. Attention business owners, find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. Oh, Big C, my insurance covers everything. Well, some people say it covers everything, but not necessarily so. How do you find out? 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. And that's how you find out if your gap is too big or if your gap is too small. Call the RDC team, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624, and find out your options. May lightning strike. I love saying may lightning strike, but hopefully lightning won't strike, because I don't like the way lightning feels if it strikes you. But I do want to say, some people say that's an infomercial. Whether it's a commercial or infomercial, when you deal with getting any endorsement, you want to find out who's endorsing the RDC team as well as the Big C team. I got to say, as the co-chair of the National Black Wall Street Project, Northern California chapter, I endorse it. And also, when you think about it, we have the endorsements of Attorney George Jones, Esquire, Chairman of the California Black Chamber of Commerce, the California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. We have the endorsement of Mr. Leon Woods, Resource Development Consulting, works with the top lobbyists in California. Also, Miss Cheryl Brown, she's the chair of the California Commission on Aging, if that makes sense to you. Mr. Ray De La Cruz, he's the CEO of Resource Development Consulting, been doing this thing over 33 years, has the endorsement of the late Robert Carlson, who was the chief counsel for CalPERS, if that makes sense to you. Also, Mr. Alex De La Cruz, founder of American Veterans Benefits, and also Big C, the RDC team with Big C Sports. Really do appreciate that. I want to give that some praise. Give it praise. You know, I believe so much in what I'm going to say, because I want to make sure that I do what I can to push forward for reparations. I'm going to bring you some sports too, and I think I have credibility here, because when I think about why I talk about reparations so much, I got an interview by the Associated Press, and it happened to me back on, it was actually March 30 of 2023. That's just last year. And it was Janie Harr, the Associated Press. She called me, and she wanted to know my thoughts on reparations. And she called me and said, she said, "Hell, is this Charlton Curry?" I said, "Yes, this is Charlton. How can I help you?" She said, "This is Janie Harr, the Associated Press." I said, "How'd you get my number?" She said, "We have our ways." I said, "Well, how can I help you?" She said, "I wanted to get your thoughts on reparations. I was listening to you speak at a reparations task force rally." I said, if you heard me speak, then you know my thoughts. I believe in reparations now, reparations forever. And I believe that's so important. And she mentioned in the article that Charlton Curry of Sacramento, California, who discusses reparations on his Big C Sports podcast, that cash payments are necessary and that money talks. Well, it's not just me. There are a lot of times when people say, "Oh, who are you and why should we listen to you?" Well, I listen to a lot of people who have really bright minds, and I like to elucidate the subject when I get my chance to. I'm not just going to say, "Light the beam, light the beam." It's great they light the beam, but I'd rather shine that light on reparations, and I want to do that. And so that means I'm going to pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. I'll get into sports too. But imagine if we put the same power into light the beam. Light the beam. Put that same power into reparations and doing the right thing. I'm going to have an attorney, in her own words, and this is very recent, in 2024, she's going to explain some things that it's not just Big C. I listen to her attorneys, That's why I speak so boldly about it. But I do want to pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. I want to give praise to the chair, Attorney Camila Moore. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Emmett C. Brown, the vice chair. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. He was actually on the Big C Sports podcast. Going to be talking to his office soon about a package that was sent to him from RDC. And I'm asking all of our task force members, as we're pushing for reparations, let's make sure that our communities understand how important it is to have a trust in place, if that makes sense to you. And then I want to give praise to not only Dr. Emmett C. Brown, the vice chair of the California Reparations Task Force. I want to give praise to California Senator Stephen Bradford. He's brilliant. He also created name, image, and likeness that helps student athletes get paid on their name, image, and likeness. He also created the Ebony Alert that helps law enforcement put the same amount of resources into finding black children when they go missing as they do with the Amber Alert when white children go missing. Really do appreciate him. Met him several times in his office, and also at Reparations Task Force. I want to give praise to Council Member Monica Montgomery Stepping. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grills. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Attorney Lisa Holder. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, professor at California, Berkeley. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. And I want to give praise to Attorney Donald K. Tamaki, part of the California Reparations Task Force as a Japanese American. He actually received reparations, and he's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I love giving him praise. But I also want to say there's some things I want to do when it comes to reparations that more and more people need to hear about. And I want to give praise to Double O. She's part of the payout committee for the National Black Wall Street Project. And she sent me Executive Order 13985 that President Biden signed in his first time in office. It's about giving opportunities to communities of color. That economic incentive is out there. And we got to make sure that we get that. But if we don't know about it, then how do we get that? She also has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. And I want to say that she sent me the article on further advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. That's called the White House. She also sent me an article from the United Nations that says that strong political leadership and political will are crucial to ensure reparatory justice for people of African descent. And again, she has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. It's a very good program, and you can hear that on Access Sacramento. Love giving her praise. And then I want to say something, because sometimes if you just hear one person talk, you say, oh, he's just talking. But I want you to hear this conversation from a lawyer. I know you want to know who won the game. And that's part of our problem as descendants of child slavery. If we put the same kind of emphasis on talking to our lawmakers in writing as we put in light the beam, light the beam, light the beam, I think we would get our reparations. Listen to this great attorney. Listen to her speak about reparations.
It's not that cash payments by themselves are enough. It's that cash payments is one way to recognize the harm that was done. And it's very interesting when you look at the Jesuit universities, 27 of them, and the work that they've done in this area. They've gone through this very, very exhaustive process to investigate their relationship to slavery. I mean, so much so that they hired genealogists to trace and to find the actual descendants of enslaved people. So, I mean, you have to think about how expansive and, intense and comprehensive this research was. But then you have to also ask yourself, how come these institutions, with all of their resources, never, ever utilized an economist, a statistician, a labor, expert to tell us the value of the wages and the wealth that they accumulated? It just looks like this big gaping hole. So I think the question should be reframed. How come the universities aren't sharing with the families the value of the labor and the value of the wealth that they've accumulated? So people are always asking descendants or survivors, why do you want money? And I think the question should be the opposite. How come you're not coming to us with money? When you think about the 9/11 victims or any victims of a disaster in this country, there's never ever a question about should we compensate them. That is a part of our civil legal judicial system. You have a harm, somebody else causes it, you are entitled to compensation. It's never ever challenged except in those examples where Black folks are involved. So I think we have to change the narrative around this question, and rather than, and not suggesting you're doing this, but oftentimes families or individuals who are seeking compensation are put on the defensive as if they've done something wrong. No fault of our own. We did nothing wrong. And if you worked for me, I'm an entrepreneur, business owner. If you worked for me and I never paid you, you would have recourse. You would be able to go to a labor board. You'd be able to go into our courts and demand your labor be compensated. You'd be able to get penalties against me for not compensating you. You'd be able to get interest on those wages that I didn't pay you. So again, this isn't like new to capitalism. This is how our country is built. This is how we operate today. You work, I pay. Let's be clear. So our request in terms of compensation restitution is not the total amount that was calculated. We calculated that amount because we felt like it needed to be a part of the conversation. It's on the table. We're not asking them for $74 billion. We're asking them to consider the value of that slave labor in the same way they are considering other aspects of their relationship with enslaved people. What we hope to get out of it is, first, that descendants are literally put back on this committee, that this is no longer a university exclusive committee, that the descendants are there at the table, that they commit to a timeline. Loyola University of Maryland went through this process and wrapped their work up in 2 years. So you can Google them and see what they've done in 2 years. We're into year 5, and we've not even sat down and talked about a plan. So we also hope that there's a commitment to wrap this work up in some foreseeable future, 6 months, 12 months, that it not just go on indefinitely. And then we are asking that the plan that is developed includes not only some of the things that we see in this work, monuments, things that give attribution to those who helped build this university, curriculum changes, projects that help the community. One thing we realized, so many people in St. Louis is a small city, 300,000 people. I live in Los Angeles now. They're like, 12 million people where I live. So few people had even heard of this work. So another part of what we're hoping that comes out of this is some resources spent educating people about this work, because people in that very community don't know. And then, of course, some kind of financial restitution for the labor, for the wages that have been uncompensated for this period of time.
Now, that's Areva Martin, and she's a civil rights attorney, and she argues that cash payments to descendants of slaves recognize the harm done from slavery. So it's not just Big C Sports, and this is 2024. You can Google her name, and she was actually on Fox News, and just about a month ago, she had made that statement. And so as Big C Sports, wherever I give you any information, I give you the footnote where to find it, and you don't have to just trust me. Attorney Areva Martin, and she was actually on Fox News, of all places. And that's why she says a civil rights attorney representing descendants of the enslaved black people who deserve reparations. I want to give her praise. And as I give her praise, before I get into sports, I want you to hear one of the greatest speakers in the history of this country talk about reparations.
It's not something that's going to be arrived at tomorrow. We are hoping for this report to have some guidance factor as we look at this process that we're engaged in. And I don't expect that anything is going to be perfect. That's not my expectations at all, but that we are engaged. We're engaged.
Martin Luther King, we had a conversation a couple days ago, about handouts and how these right-wing memes, these Republican memes, have infiltrated the Democratic debate to suggest that, ending welfare as we know it, all those kind of things are somehow, great and noble things, when we're not dealing with the underlying problem, which is that there's no economic opportunity there because of insane trade policies and because of Reaganomics. And Martin Luther King spoke to this. Jim and Shane, this is clip number 4. Martin Luther King spoke to this sometime back in the early 60s. And I thought this was a really interesting quote. Here he is.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. This is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
From his speech, The Two Nations of Black America, and it's absolutely brilliant. And the next time some white person talks about, well, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and my family did too, especially the Bundy boys. I mean, here's Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., talking about how basically whites stole the West from the Indians with the complete, and didn't just steal it. I mean, murdered them he murdered the Indians in the process, and did not give any of these benefits to African Americans for 100 years in this country. It's a strong case for reparations or some variation on it, for rebuilding our cities, for doing right after having done wrong for so many centuries. It is a very, very strong case for that.
I'm telling you, you got to realize that reparations are necessary. You got to see that not only are reparations necessary, and that is due. And it's not just me. These are attorneys, black and white, that are telling you about why I say reparations now, reparations forever. It's so necessary, so people can't say, oh, he's just talking, he's just trying to get some money. But these are economists and also lawyers that have studied reparations, and they know that the United States is a part of making sure reparations gets paid. If you just Google the Just Act of today, you'll find that Congress is making sure that descendants of Holocaust get paid. That's in 2024. But like the lawyer said, when it comes to African Americans, people want to say, oh, why would the taxpayer have to pay that? If they didn't have that same question when the United States government, Congress gave white Americans the Homestead Act over 300 million acres of land. It was in 1862. And no one said, oh, why would the taxpayers have to foot that bill? The government did it. The United States government did it. And when the GI Bill was given to white soldiers coming home from the war, you had to be white. They wouldn't give it to black soldiers that fought for this country also. No one said, oh, why would the taxpayers have to pay for the GI Bill? Well, that was done. It was an act of Congress. The government did it. Even the United States government helped, along with the United Nations, to rebuild Europe after the war. And now people go to Europe on vacation. No one argued, oh, I don't want my tax dollars going for that. I mean, we're giving money to all kind of countries now. Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars. And no one complains, whether you complain or not. The money got sent. And I'm going to get into some sports too, but I thought something. I love talking about reparations because you only hear it on Big C Sports Podcast. And I will do more to champion what these attorneys are saying, just like with the RDC team, protection of your assets, helping you understand a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth. If you don't have your assets in order, the probate has a will for you. And they love when you don't get protected before you show up. They love it. At the end of life, they have a will for you. They just don't tell you about it until you get there. It's called probate, and it's not kind to you. That's why I always advocate for the asset protection, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. But I gotta say something. If you realize the 115th Congress, the Justice for Uncompensated Survivors Today Act, if you Google it, it's called the JUST Act, J-U-S-T, of 2017. You can Google what it is. It's about Congress and how they made sure that descendants of Holocaust get their payments. I'm not making this stuff up. You can Google it. Why is it so difficult when it comes to descendants of child slavery? People talk about, I don't want my taxes going up. The Homestead Act already gave white people everything, even white Europeans. You can Google that, 1862. All the way up to 1865. But Google Justice for Uncompensated Survivors Today Act of 2017. The sponsor was Senator Tommy Baldwin, a Democrat from Wisconsin. You can Google it and see what it says. So that way Big C doesn't sound so crazy. Oh, Big C, there you go talk about reparations again. Because if I don't do it, nobody will. All we'll talk about is touchdown, home run, three-point play. Oh, man, Willie, he's going all the way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, everybody loves that. I talked about NBA basketball. Golden State Warriors, their season came to an end. Me Lightning strike! The Sacramento Kings, they lit the beam at the beautiful Golden One Center. And now the Kings get the chance to move on to play the New Orleans Pelicans down in New Orleans. Hopefully they stay away from all that fried food because it's going to be tough. But they don't have Zion Williamson. He's not playing. And at the same time, the Sacramento Kings, they're on a tear right now. They can outscore anybody. But can they play defense? They shut down Steph Curry last night. And that's something that they have in their back pocket that Coach Mike Brown has. So I'm just like anybody else. I was a little bit shocked that they held Steph Curry to 22 points last night. But the 2023-2024 NBA regular season is now a thing of the past, and it comes to our NBA playoff. And right now, we're trying to see who are the best teams now. You got to realize it. I think I love NBA basketball. It's so powerful, in my opinion. But I think for what happens on the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, I'll start with the teams on the Eastern Conference. For me, the Boston Celtics, they remain the cream of the crop in the NBA playoffs when they get going. And I'm telling you right now, with the Boston Celtics, that includes a 9-3 record against other top, I think about some of the top elite title contenders in the Eastern Conference this season.